Ooh, what's up, nerds and geeks? My name is OMG WTF LOL FTWBRB. Welcome back to more Total Extreme Wrestling 2016. We are playing as the WWF in the year 2001. But as always, more importantly, we are booking the invasion angle. So this is the Smackdown after SummerSlam. So I forget what the Fallout show, pretty much. We had Raw. This is kind of like the Fallout show. But also, if you guys watched the Monday Night Raw episode, tonight's going to kind of have a little bit of a story to it. Tonight is William Regal's test to see if he can become commissioner or not. But we'll get to that when we get to that. First thing first, though, we had a couple locker room incidents, none negative, all positive. So first off, Jonathan Coachman and Chris Jericho, they were really well, is what the game said, I believe, before the show, meaning like they were all like in a really good mood. They were happy, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, their moods were so good that it was infectious and it infected the entire locker room, and everybody just, got in a good mood pretty much because of Jonathan Coachman and Chris Jericho. Don't know what they were doing, but they did something, and thank you for that, guys. Also, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the WWF champion, was passing along tips on, I think it was psychology. See, this is why I shouldn't have clicked off so fast. Yeah, psychology, like I thought. Passing along tips of psychology to Rhino, who is his protege. Either way, though, let's go ahead and start the show, shall we? We have a total of 3 pre-show matches. And in our first pre-show match, we get a C-, which, that's pretty good. In a pre-show bout that had subpar wrestling and a little heat, Mark Jindrak of WCW, the protege to The Undertaker, defeating Hardcore Holly with the Mark of Perfection. Hardcore Holly had an in-ring performance of a C, Jindrak at a D, so a whole grade above Jindrak. No worker improvements, though. We move on to our next segment, which gets a C+. In a decent pre-show match, Lance Storm defeating Scotty to Hotty with the last call. It says we also had Lance Storm turn on Scotty to Hotty, but ignore that too much. I'll explain that in a second. He made his 3rd defense of his Canadian Championship, so I figured why not put the Canadian title on the line here. So the reason why it says Lance Storm turned on Scotty to Hotty is kind of like Rikishi. When Scotty to Hotty came back from his injury, he was still a heel. And a heel Scotty to Hotty doesn't excite me. The only Scotty to Hotty, Rikishi, and Grandmaster Sexay that I want to book is the fun-loving faces known as Too Cool. Not a heel version. Maybe one day. So I figured I need to turn Scotty. Let's just turn him now. Doesn't really matter if it doesn't go well because it's not like I have a lot of plans for Scotty to Hotty at all anyway. So either way, though, Lance Storm had an in-ring performance of a B. So Storm is getting lots and lots of better ever since he got popular. And Scotty had an in-ring performance of a D. Let's go ahead and complete his turn. And it was a success. Huh. Interesting. No worker improvements. And then in our final pre-show match of the night, in a match that gets a B-, that's actually pretty good. A B- in a bout that had decent wrestling but not much weight and heat. The Hardy Boys defeating the Right to Censor members Goodfather and Val Venus, when Matt defeated Val Venus with the Twist of Fate Swanton Bond combo. And they make their first defense of the WCW Tag Team titles. So I figured why not, put the titles on the line even though there's not a WCW guy in this match. Jeff Hardy at a B+ in the in-ring performance area. Matt Hardy at a B, and Val at a C, Goodfather at a C-. So it seems like it kind of went down like each person, like B+, B, C, C-, like not bad at all though, to be honest. Well, we're going to start the show now, so let's go ahead and move on to the opening segment of the night, which gets us a B+. The show starts off with Vince McMahon and Mick Foley already standing in the middle of the ring. Again, I don't have a drink, so hopefully this doesn't mess my voice up too much, but welcome, everybody. Welcome to Thursday Night Smackdown. And then that's when Mick Foley interrupts, right here in the Palace of Auburn Hills, wherever the hell we are. I don't know the cities. I'm sorry. I gotta also blow my nose real quick. Okay. Now that we got that taken care of. So Foley says right here in whatever city we're in. Vincent goes, yeah. Now, ladies and gentlemen, tonight could potentially be an historical night. Because tonight, we very well could have a new commissioner of Thursday Night Smackdown. In fact, let's bring our potential future commissioner out here. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir William Regal. Regal's music then hits. He makes his way down to the ring. Of course, he's waving to the fans like I don't know if he ever really did that. I just kind of remember, him doing kind of like the princess wave to fans for some reason. Once in the ring, he goes over, he shakes Mick Foley's hand, he shakes Mr. McMahon's hand, he's thanking them. And Vince takes the mic and he says, "Now, Mr. Regal, you have been given full control over tonight's show. Tonight is your test and your chance to show and prove to myself and Commissioner Foley that you are ready for the responsibilities that come with the commissioner role. But with that being said, Commissioner Foley and myself have written up a contract that may or may not be signed tonight, depending on how well the show goes." And I'd imagine Regal being like, "Oh, I promise you, sir, blah, 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 it's going to go great, yada, yada, yada." So we see William Regal go on to sign the contract. Vincent would probably respond being like, "I don't even know if I actually continued this. No, I didn't." So I'd imagine William Regal signing the contract, and then Vince pretty much saying this contract will be signed by Mick Foley tonight, given that he thinks that you're a good replacement for him. So Regal's already signed the contract. We're just waiting for Foley's, and we're going to see that by the end of the night. So the performance of Vince McMahon was good. Regal performed poorly, but that's to be expected considering he's only a mid-carder in there with two guys who are fantastic on the mic. Other than that, though, it did gain the Regal Commissioner storyline some heat, and it got the angle, the angle got the crowd hotter, but it also was a strong start to the show. No worker improvements, though. So we move on to our first match of a William Regal Smackdown. We have a match between Edge and Christian and Test and Albert that gets a B-, not too bad at all. And about that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Test and Albert defeating Edge and Christian in 10 minutes and 10 seconds when Test defeated Edge by pinfall with a running big boot after Edge was distracted by Christian. Unfortunately, Albert was the weak link in this match, struggling to keep up with everyone else's in-ring performance. So pretty much the way you'll see Edge was distracted by Christian, it's not an intentional distraction. Let me explain real quick. So I'd imagine the match is going back and forth. Both teams are even. And then at one point of the match, Trish starts walking over towards Christian, and Christian's like, "Hey, how are you?" Blah, 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 kind of flirting with, Trish. Edge, looking to tag Christian. He's sitting there like, Christian, tag me or something. And then finally he's like, "You know what, whatever." And he turns around to continue on with the match, but gets a running big boot from Test instead. 1, 2, 3, Test and Albert win. Christian, of course, not suited for his gimmick, but we cannot change it yet, unfortunately. The second I can, we will. Albert was really off his game. That's unfortunate. Trish did some good work ringside. Christian and Edge, of course, have excellent chemistry teaming together. The face turns, of course, I haven't changed Test's in-game ability to be a face. I don't know if that's exact. The stats, I guess, to be a face. So, of course, it's showing that it's not getting really that well of a reaction. But that's fine. Like I said, I'm going to do that either way. Edge, wow. Edge had an in-ring performance of an A. Good lord, good for you, Edge. Christian at a B+, Test at a B-, and Albert at a C. So not too bad. Christian is improving in Rumble. That is also good. We move on to our next segment, and we see Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman. Now, if you guys watched WCW at all, or even watched my Let's Play, or not really a Let's Play, my playthrough of WCW in Total Extreme Wrestling 2013, Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman are former WCW Tag Team Champions, and they're a former WCW Tag Team. I believe their team was... Oh boy. I honestly don't remember now that I think about it. Either way, though, they were a team, and I'd assume they're also good friends in real life, so that's kind of why I chose Billy Kidman here. So they would be talking and, being friendly with each other until William Regal approaches them, and he says, "Excuse me, Mr. Mysterio, may I have a word, please?" And Ray looks over at Billy and says, I gotta talk to Regal here or something, whatever. Billy Kidman walks off, and then Regal says, "First things first, congratulations on becoming the WCW Cruiserweight Champion and the final ever WWF Light Heavyweight Champion. I may work for the other side, but I've got to give credit when credit is due. Shane McMahon made a brilliant decision bringing you in. Now that we've got that out of the way, we can move on to more important matters. As I'm sure that you know tonight, I am the interim and possible future commissioner of Thursday Night Smackdown. and it is my duty to ensure that the show is as entertaining and as engaging as possible. And while Gregory Helms is due his rematch for the Cruiserweight Championship, so that is why tonight, coming up next actually, you will make your WWF televised debut by defending your Cruiserweight Championship against the former champion, Gregory Helms. Good luck, Ray. And then he walks away. I imagine we go to a commercial from here, but pretty much coming up next, we are going to see the WCW Cruiserweight Championship on the line as Rey Mysterio makes his WWF televised debut against Gregory Helms. We move on to said match, which gets us a C. And about that head, decent wrestling, but little heat. Rey Mysterio Jr. defeating Gregory Helms in 8 minutes and 21 seconds with a springboard hurricanrana, making his first official defense of the Cruiserweight Championship. Rey had an in-ring performance of a C+, to Gregory Helms' D+, so a full grade above him. No worker improvements. I believe I made... No, I didn't. I thought I made this match a high spot. I guess I didn't. That might have helped, actually. Who knows? Out of curiosity, let's see. Rey Mysterio's got charisma, star quality, high morale. Oh, that was Gregory Helms. I was like, how does Mysterio have 2 star qualities? Okay, not too bad. So moving on to our next segment. This is directly after the match. Rey Mysterio's in the ring, celebrating, holding up his championship, when Dean Malenko's music hits. And he comes out, he's clapping for Rey, and then he just kind of points at, the Cruiserweight Championship and kind of does the whole motion that I'm going to become champion. Thus, starting the storyline between Rey Mysterio and Dean Malenko. It only makes sense since Gregory Helms got the rematch. Dean Malenko being the light heavyweight champion before Rey beat him, also deserves a rematch, and since the light heavyweight title is now retired, Cruiserweight Championship it is. So Malenko coming out, laying his claim to be the next challenger for Rey Mysterio's Cruiserweight Championship. Got a C+, not too bad. That's better than the match itself. We move on to another angle. I'd imagine coming back from commercial break here. We get a B+. We see Shane McMahon alongside Booker T and Farouk, who in a couple minutes you'll see his name is now Ron Simmons. We'll explain that in a second. They make their way down to the ring. Once in the ring, Shane McMahon takes the mic and he says, "What's up, the Palace of Auburn Hills?" Again, I don't know. And then he says, I know the big story everyone is talking about tonight is whether or not William Regal is going to become SmackDown's commissioner. Which, if you want my honest opinion, it's only because my father wants to brush the real news under the rug. It's because my father doesn't want people talking about how at one of WWF's biggest pay-per-views of the year, SummerSlam, how my man, Booker T, beat Chris Jericho to retain WCW's greatest prize. And even though he tried to stack the odds into his favor by sending his giant after us. But speaking of news, my dad doesn't want anyone talking about... Let's talk about the man formerly known as Farouk, who would now like to be known as his God-given name, Ron Simmons. In any case, if you missed Raw, let me explain. Ron Simmons is a legend. You people are looking at the first ever African-American world champion, which, by the way, is not true. I did a little bit of research, and the first ever African-American champion was, I believe, Bobo Brazil, but Farouk's more recognized for it because it happened on like a televised scale, whereas Bobo Brazil, I believe, was probably just like in a live event somewhere. So either way, you're looking at the first ever African-American world champion. This is WWF, so we're going to, of course, do what WWF always does and ignore real history so that we can promote real history. And that happened in WCW. We're going to have to pull this up real quick, so let's go ahead and get rid of this locker room segment real quick. And then Shane says, "So you would think when my father hired him that he'd give him this big shot, right? No, my father stole a legend from WCW and made him a fool in the WWF. So that is why, while Ron was out on a minor injury, I came by and I checked in on him. We sat down, we talked about how such a legend shouldn't be wrestling for a company that doesn't appreciate him, but he should be wrestling for a company that loves him, and that company is WCW." Right when he says that, Chris Jericho's music interrupts him, and he makes his way out to the entryway. Jericho, he's got a big smile on his face, and he says, "Shane-o, that's rich. That's the funniest joke I think I've ever heard. Did you just say WCW appreciates their talent? No, The only thing WCW appreciated was the money shoveled into their pockets while they got lazy and stole talents from other companies or any company that they could. And then Shane responds, you know, Chris, that may have been the old WCW's way of doing things, but let me tell you, Shane McMahon's WCW is nothing like that. Jericho then responds, oh, please, you're doing the exact same thing now. First you tried it up with Kurt, but all of a sudden changed your mind and went with Chris Benoit instead. And right now you're so far up Rook's ass. Sorry. That's a little joke that might go over a lot of people's heads. Far up Rook's ass, because his name was Farouk, so far up Rook. I don't know. I thought it was funny. That you quite literally have become a piece of crap, Shane. And then Ron Simmons takes the mic and he says, you shut your mouth, Jericho. And then Jericho goes, oh, you want me to shut up? Well, why don't you come and do it for me? In fact, Book, you and I have unfinished business as well. So how about you both try and shut my mouth for me? Shane, of course, answers laughing. You don't know what you just got yourself into. You want a handicap match against two of the greatest world champions in WCW history? And then Jericho goes, a handicap match? Trust me, Shane, my name's not Kurt Angle. I'm not going to fall for something stupid like that. Unlike that jackass, I've hired some protection. And you know, the funny thing is, he didn't even charge me. He said, he's also got some unfinished with you, Ronnie. And that's when Bradshaw's music hits, and both Jericho and Bradshaw start making their way to the ring for what will be a tag team match. An impromptu tag team match. So the angle did get the crowd hotter. Ron Simmons performed poorly in this segment, but to be honest, he's in the ring with all these stars. Surprisingly, though, Bradshaw didn't perform poorly in this segment. Maybe it's because Ron was based off entertainment and Bradshaw was just overness? I don't know. The performance of Chris Jericho was good, and it advanced the Invasion and Jericho's Booker T storyline while officially starting the Ron Simmons Bradshaw storyline. So the reason why I'm going with, Ron Simmons being called Ron Simmons instead of being called Farouk now is because the way I want to do it, if anybody jumps ship from from WWF to WCW, I kind of want them to go back to their old WCW persona. And we've kind of seen that with Rey Mysterio. He didn't really jump ship, but he came in and automatically he's not called Rey Mysterio, spelled Mysterio. We're going to keep it the original WCW spelling way, Mysterio. And also, we're going to keep the junior in there instead of, what WWE did. So I'm going to try to do that with anybody that jumps ship from WWF to WCW. And anybody that I bring in, I want to kind of keep it as authentic as possible by making them, having them be called by what they were called in WCW. So Ron Simmons, now being a WCW guy, goes back to just being called Ron Simmons. No worker improvements, but we go on to our match, which gets us a solid B. Hell yes. And about that had good wrestling and a decent reaction from the crowd. Booker T and Ron Simmons defeating Chris Jericho and Bradshaw in 10 minutes and 11 seconds when Ron Simmons defeated Bradshaw with the Dominator. So nothing too special here, just a one-on-one match, which I'd imagine probably halfway through, Shane McMahon maybe getting a little involved, distracting Jericho, allowing Ron Simmons and Booker T to kind of double team on Bradshaw, something around that line. Either way, it did deserve better color commentary, but there's nothing I really can do about that. Bradshaw had an in-ring performance of a B-. Chris Jericho had an in-ring performance of a B+. Ron Simmons at a C+. And Booker T, to my surprise, had an in-ring performance of an A. Holy crap, that's awesome. You go, Book. So he was the best in-ring performance. Jericho at second, Bradshaw at the third, with Ron Simmons placed at fourth, but that's fine. The Jericho Booker T storyline lost some heat, unfortunately. I don't know why. Bradshaw is also improving in performance, so there we go. Moving on to our next segment, we just go on to a C-. Nothing too special here. In an extremely short match, Big Show defeating K-Quick in 3 minutes and a second with the chokeslam. He had an in-ring performance of a B+, K-Quick at a D. The reason why this match is even on the show is because I had a lot of angles on this show. A lot of angles and a lot of time given to angles, and I needed more matches. So in order to get more matches, I quickly just threw together this match to fill my time. That way the game would stop yelling at me to make more matches. It's the first time I really ever got that. It's usually the other way around. Moving on to our next segment, we go to a B, and we see Edge and Christian. They're backstage, and they're just bickering with each other back and forth. And Christian goes, "You see, man, that's what I was talking about. Teaming with the Dudleys made you lose your cool. You're down on your slope, my brother, and I can't carry you forever." And then Edge goes, "Yeah? Well, I guess you can't have my back either. What were you doing over there? I was trying to tag you." And Christian responds, "I got a little distracted. What can I say? Trish came over and I couldn't help myself." "Yeah? Well, that little distraction just cost us a match." And then Edge just walks out of the locker room, and Christian goes, "Oh, get over it, you crybaby. Just because Trish came over to flirt with me doesn't mean you got to try and block me from scoring, man. Sore loser." So just a little bit of a segment here showing that Edge and Christian are having a bit of a problem. It started off at Sunday Night Heat when, Christian bragged to Edge that how he had a title match and Edge didn't. And it's still going on. It seems like the two are having a little bit of issues right now. No work improvements though, but I got a B rating. Good job, guys. We then go to an A star. Wow, this did awesome. So Austin's music hits. He makes his way down to the ring. This is back from commercial break again, like I'd imagine. Once in the ring, he takes the mic and he says, hopefully this doesn't sound too much like Vince McMahon. "Now, I know I wasn't on Monday Night Raw. I took that night off to relax from SummerSlam, but in case y'all missed the show or have been living under a rock the past few days, Stone Cold Steve Austin is still your WWF champion. And hopefully now that I've embarrassed Triple H by shattering his ego, by not only beating him in the middle of the ring for the 1, 2, 3, but also by hitting a beautiful Stone Cold Stunner on that sumbitch right after my beautiful wife Deborah got her sweet, sweet, sweet revenge by slapping Triple H so hard that his nose almost flew off." But moving on from Triple H and his ego, like I said, hopefully now that I've beaten Triple H, I can move on to bigger and better things. But anyway, now I'm sure everyone here knows that William Regal is serving as the commissioner tonight. But what some of you may not know is that Regal and I are actually good friends. Which is true. If we go, I might show it off, I might forget, who knows. But if we go to Stone Cold Steve Austin's relationship section, it shows that him and Regal are really good friends. And since we're good friends, he had asked me, and we're going to have to pull this up. Go ahead and do this. We can also get rid of promo number 3. He had asked me if I could help bring some excitement to the show. And since Stone Cold is such a good friend, I told him I had just the right idea. So tonight, I'm going to give an opportunity to anyone in the back who has not held this championship. The first one of you stupid sons of bitches in the back that come down here and accept my challenge gets a chance to win your first world championship by facing me in a match. So come on, who's going to accept? And remember, you can't have held the world title yet. That means you, Triple H, because I know your dumbass is watching. So you got about 5 minutes for someone to come down here and offers on the table. If not, the offer's off the table. I'm going to set my watch. And he starts, to set his little invisible watch. Anyone remember when Stone Cold had his watch? But right when he's, setting his watch, the music of the returning Rhino hits. And he makes his way down to the ring, rushing to the ring to accept Austin's challenge. And we have our match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Rhino. So let me explain this angle a little bit, because I don't know if I did it justice in that promo. So pretty much, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he comes down here, he talks a little bit of, crap on Triple H. He does bring up the fact, William Regal, he approached me, being the commissioner. It was one of those angles I wanted to include, but because I had so many angles, it just didn't work out. There's also an Undertaker angle I wanted to include that I just didn't have the time to, or the match space to. So either way, Austin was asked by William Regal, since we're good friends, can you help me out by spicing this show up a little bit? Austin agrees. He's giving a title shot to anyone in the back who has not held a WWF World Championship. So I guess technically someone like Booker T could come out. But the whole premise here pretty much is not just anyone who hasn't held the WWF Championship, anyone who just hasn't held a World Championship in general. So I guess it wouldn't make much sense for Rhino to do this since he's a former ECW World Champion. But whatever. So pretty much anyone who hasn't held the WWF or WCW World Championship, but mostly it's the WWF Championship. So Austin, being a good friend, as he says, He's coming out. He's issuing a challenge, and Rhino is the person to accept that. Now, Rhino was suspended a while back for, I believe, steroids, but we're also playing that off like a minor injury, kind of like we are with Farouk and Christian. So Rhino makes his return, and he's going to challenge Austin. But the real reason why I chose Rhino here is because that's his protege. As we saw earlier in the night, Austin was passing along tips to Rhino for psychology. I figured it'd be kind of cool to have, protege versus mentor. Not that the world knows that yet, but, I still thought it would be cool. Austin was a real star. Of course, Rhino did not come out looking good, but that's fine. And the Triple H Stone Cold storyline improved as of this. So we move on to our match. I believe this is the main event of the night as well. So main event of the night gets us a B rating. Not too shabby. A B rating. Wouldn't have minded a B plus and A minus, but B rating, not too bad. And about that had great wrestling and good heat. Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating Rhino in 13 minutes and 19 seconds. When Rhino was disqualified after Triple H ran in and attacked Stone Cold, Austin making his 4th defense of the World Championship. So the way I'd imagine this happening here is the match is back and forth. Rhino is taking Austin to the limit pretty much, showing him that he's not just some slouch. And I'd imagine at some point it looks like Rhino's about to win. He's setting up for the gore, getting ready to gore Stone Cold. When, as Austin gets up, Triple H comes running in the ring, and he just decks Austin with a sledgehammer, thus giving, the disqualification to Austin. I don't know, I just lost my train of thought there for a second. So Triple H comes in, sledgehammers Austin, and disqualification happens. So anyway, moving on to our road agent report. Here's something interesting. So not only is Rhino the protege to Austin, but Rhino and Austin have pretty good chemistry, and it lifted the match. That's pretty cool. Of course, the performance of Stone Cold stood out as being good. Rhino had an in-ring performance of a B minus, and Austin had an A star. And unfortunately, this did lose the Triple H Stone Cold rivalry some heat there. But moving on to our next segment, we go to an A star. So this didn't lose any heat. It gained heat. So the match is over, and we see Triple H. He's standing over and knocked out Stone Cold Steve Austin after hitting him with a sledgehammer. I'd imagine Rhino going over to Triple H, turning him around, screaming at his face like, "Why the hell did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. That was my chance. Yada, yada, yada." Triple H then just decks Rhino with the sledgehammer, taking him out as well. And he looks down at Austin again. He just gets on top of him and starts decking him over and over again with these just punches. I think he has him kind of like in a headlock and he's punching him. Triple H has done it in the past. So he's just beating down on Austin over and over again until the interim, potentially future commissioner, William Regal, makes his way out there and he starts waving for security to come out. Security does come out and they pull Triple H off of Stone Cold, taking him to the back while he's just screaming pretty much. So anyway, Triple H was the real star in this segment. Austin came out of this looking excellent, and it gained that storyline their heat back. Regal and Rhino weren't rated in this, so that's why it got an A star. I don't want anyone to get excited here. So moving on to the next segment is the closing segment of the night. We get a B plus to end the show. The ring is set up all nice for our official contract signing. We see Vince, Regal, and Foley are already in the ring. And Vince McMahon says, "Well, it's the end of the show, and if I do say so myself, Mr. Regal, I personally thought it was a great show. And if it were up to me, you'd be our new Smackdown commissioner. But for once, it's not up to me. That's not my decision to make. That decision falls onto the shoulders of the current commissioner of the WWF, Mick Foley. So, Commissioner Foley, let's hear your opinion on the night." And then Foley takes the mic and he says, "Thank you, Mr. McMahon. Now, Mr. Regal, I'll admit it first. I wasn't so sure about you being my replacement. You've always had a great mind for the business, but I wasn't sure if you had the fans' best interest in your mind. But after tonight's show, I'm glad to say I was wrong. And if this is what we're going to see each week on SmackDown from you, then I've got to say SmackDown is in good hands." So we see Foley. He goes on and he signs the contract, officially making Regal the new SmackDown commissioner. If you remember, Regal's already signed it. I'd assume Vince has probably already signed it by now as well. So Mick Foley signed it, and William Regal is now the new SmackDown commissioner. In fact, Foley even goes, "Everyone, your new SmackDown commissioner, But before he can even say William Regal, the music of Shane McMahon interrupts him, and he comes out alongside WCW, which in this case it being Booker T, Ric Flair, Diamond Dallas Page, and Chris Benoit. So pretty much kind of like all the stars of WCW right now. On all 5 men, they stand at the entryway, clapping pretty much like, yeah, sarcastically clapping, while Shane McMahon takes the mic, and they start making their way towards the ring. And Shane goes, congrats! A big congratulations to the new SmackDown commissioner, William Regal. But, Dad, you said that this was going to be an historic night, and you were right, it is. But not for the reason you think. You see, the reason why tonight's going to be historic is because tonight marks the official day that SmackDown began to die. It never mattered to us who was going to be the commissioner of SmackDown, whether it be Regal or Foley. Because either way, soon enough, SmackDown will be WCW property. And then Vince says, oh really, Shane? And how exactly do you plan to make that happen? You may be able to steal my superstars, but there is no way in hell I'd sign over SmackDown or Raw to you. Then we see WCW, they get up on all 4 sides of the ring. I'd imagine mostly just that being Booker, Page, Benoit, and maybe even Flair. So we see them all up on 4 sides of the ring while Shane's kind of standing on the steps. And they're all, they're surrounding the ring. Mick Foley and William Regal kind of like, go back to back, around Mr. McMahon. Foley's like in front of McMahon, Regal's like in front of McMahon. Foley's behind him. They're, pretty much protecting Vince McMahon from WCW if they get in the ring. Shane then goes, well, you see, Dad, that's the funny thing. You kind of already did. And right when he says that, William Regal, the new commissioner, quickly turns around and he decks Mr. McMahon with the power of the punch, the punch with the brass knuckles. Mick Foley, he turns around, he's shocked, he's stunned. But before he can really react quick enough or get to Mick Foley, WCW gets in the ring and they start beating down on Mick Foley. And as the show ends with Shane, William Regal, and the rest of WCW standing tall to end the show. So Swerve, not Mick Foley, it would seem that William Regal is now a WCW guy. Let me explain what just happened here. So as we, the simple thing is, Regal got the job. Foley saw that Regal put on a good show, gave him the position, but what Foley and Mr. McMahon didn't know is William Regal was pretty much playing possum. He was pretty much an undercover agent, I guess, for WCW. See, the whole plan right here was to get William Regal a commissioner position because Shane McMahon wants WCW. That's his next step, taking away one of Vince's shows. And when he said, pretty much, that funny thing is, Dad, you've already given me SmackDown. He did. Vince and Foley signed over SmackDown to pretty much William Regal. Now, technically, Vince McMahon is still the owner of SmackDown, but William Regal has now officially signed a contract, meaning that he's the commissioner. He's practically the general manager of SmackDown, meaning that he runs SmackDown. It might be a WWF-owned show, but Regal is the appointed commissioner now, the appointed boss. So he runs SmackDown. So now with Regal, who has just revealed that he is part of WCW by punching his former boss Vince McMahon in the mouth with the power of the punch, has now joined WCW. So SmackDown is kind of WCW's now, and we'll see that storyline play out. Of course, a little bit over now, but William Regal has joined WCW officially and is now the commissioner for not only SmackDown, but probably the commissioner for WCW in whole. So either way, of course, the announcing job for Michael Cole was bad, but the announcing on SmackDown usually is. William Regal performed poorly, but if this was real life, I'd imagine the fans could just like, holy crap, what did we just saw? Booker T looked good, and the performance of Chris Benoit was good as well. And this did gain the Invasion and the Regal Commissioner storyline some heat as well. Also, Booker T is developing better performance skills. So let's go ahead and end the show. And we got a solid B+ rating for tonight's show, increasing our popularity in 16 regions. And Nerds and Geeks, I've been really excited to book that SmackDown for a long time, just because I've had that in my head for a while, that we were going to have Regal turn on, WCW, or turn on WWF and give SmackDown to WCW, yada, yada, yada. So it did get fantastic reviews, and anything else really doesn't look like it. We do have a decision to make, and I'm hoping that it's not something negative. Oh, boy. You just got back. All right, nerds and geeks. Now, I know what I've done in the past was suspend people over steroids, but I think I'm going to kind of pass up on that right now. I think what I am going to do after I end this is go into the settings of the game and see if there's a way to make the steroids kind of less. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Pretty much make sure it doesn't happen as often as it has been happening. Because it seems like almost every week someone's been identified as a steroid user. And I don't want to be suspending people over and over again, especially people that I have storyline plans for. So I think for now on, when it comes to steroids, with these two at least, I'm going to go ahead and find them. And if there is a way to set the steroids down to kind of lower, I will start suspending people for it. So we're going to go ahead and find Rhino for this, and I'm assuming this is also going to be steroids. Yeah. It seems like everybody's on steroids. Edge is unhappy, but even Rhino. Come on, guys. Seriously? Everyone's unhappy that we just find Edge. Hardcore Holly believes that he deserves to be booked better, but, Oh boy, Ron Simmons says, Scotty too Hotty doesn't connect with the fans, in my opinion. The kid has a little upside. Okay. That's whatever to me. It doesn't really bother me that much. So as we can see here, Edge, not Rhino surprisingly, but Christian all have morale issues. Get over it. Check out the storylines before we end this off. So Booker T and Jericho at a B, Edge and Christian and Storm at a B-, which technically this hasn't started. Regal, which we can officially alter this description. Regal Commissioner is going to be William Regal versus Mick Foley now. So we can go ahead and do that. Got a C for Mysterio and Malenko. Bradshaw and Ron Simmons got a B. Invasion's got a B+. Rock and DDP at an A. Triple H and Austin at an A. Regal and Foley, as we said before, is at a B. Benoit and Angle at a B. And the WWF Tag Team title storylines at a B. So other than that, Nerds and Geeks show went really well. I'm very happy with it. As I said before, I am going to go into the settings, which is right up here. And I'm going to edit test. And I'm also going to see if we can fix the steroids things. I'm not sure if that'd be in user preferences. I'm assuming it would be. Either way, though, Nerds and Geeks, that's the end of this episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, do me a favor, leave me a comment, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. My name's been OMG, WTF, LOL to WBRB. Yes, I did almost mess up my own outro there. Hope you guys have enjoyed. Don't forget to share this video with your friends, Facebook, and Twitter to help the channel grow. It greatly helps. And as always, I will see you guys for Sunday Night Heat. So until then, have a wonderful day, Nerds and Geeks.